Good morning, TBL. So this morning we're going to be focusing on memories and remembering. So I am going to need a bit of contribution today. So I just want everyone to think of a memory that's a positive memory preferably, and something that you're happy to share with everyone else, and something that you think's had an impact in your life. So it can be anything. It could be a holiday you went on recently, a wedding, the birth of a child that you remember. It could be a baptism, that you remember your baptism. So it can be a childhood memory, just anything that you want it to be that you're happy to come and share with the rest of the people. If you don't want to join in, that's absolutely fine. But if you're happy to come up and share a memory and put a smile on everyone else's face, that would be great. So I'll get started. I was recently sharing with some of my students a childhood memory. I don't know why it came to me randomly, but I always remember we used to go and stay in some chalets in Skegness. Skegness is really popular in Nottingham, but not many people know about Skegness over in Birmingham. But it's just basically a seaside resort. And we used to stay in chalets. They're a little bit like caravans, but they're proper old school. And at the back of the chalets, there was always a huge hill. And we're 80s children. We didn't actually have that many toys. We weren't able to bring bikes and scooters on holiday. But what we had was a cardboard box, because our parents would bring loads of food, pack it in a cardboard box, put it in the chalet, then they'd give us the cardboard box. So I had two brothers, and there's me and my sister. So we used to get the cardboard boxes, go to the top of the hill. One of us would jump in a cardboard box and push the other one down it. And that's just a childhood memory that I always remember. And we didn't literally go back to the chalet till it was pitch black. We had grass marks all over us, and it was just lots of fun. And that's just a childhood memory that I was sharing with some others, and it just got a conversation going. Does anyone else want to just share a memory, or shall I carry on with what I'm doing? Yep. Hang on a minute, Veronica. I think Dandre's just going to give you the mic.
I just wanted to share that when I arrived in the UK, it was February '62, and there were like waist-high snow, and it was my first snow, and I met my dad and my mum for the first time, as I recall, and my dad's friend, and that my dad and his friend had travelled from Manchester to come to London to come and pick me up and then bring me to Birmingham to meet my mum and my stepdad. I just think it was wonderful seeing the snow, getting here. But at the same time, I was sad because I missed my grandmother. But it's a memory that stays with me all the time because it's a life-changing experience. It was great.
Thank you for sharing that, Sister Veronica. I'll carry on. And at some point, I'll be asking someone else to share a memory. So I want to encourage us today about remembering. The apostles wrote many times in the New Testament, I'm reminding you. I'm reminding you again. Does anyone need to be reminded more than once? Paul put it this way, I never get tired of reminding you. And the Apostle Peter says, I'm writing you 2 letters to remind you. The apostles really understood the importance of reminding people and people remembering things. Are we glad today that we've been able to share a couple of memories? I know we've only just started off, but we're going to continue sharing memories. The apostles knew the power behind remembering. They realized it can transform your life when you remember the things of God, and you remember what God has said and remember what God has done. We have to remember the things of God. It's easy to forget, and forgetting can have devastating effects. It can cause unbelief, and it can cause doubt. Does anyone else want to share a memory? Go on then, Andrew.
Just want to share a memory of one of the earlier Christmases that I remember. I don't know if people of my age will know that when you were growing up in primary school, you needed to have a Beyblade. Now, for those that don't know what a Beyblade is, it's like this spinning top toy that you rip it and it spins, and like you battle against each other and you knock it out the ring, and you had to have a Beyblade. Everyone had one. We were playing it everywhere, and there was one Christmas where we celebrated it, me, Andrew, obviously our family, then our cousins as well. And most of our cousins in this country are boys. So we all were into Beyblade, and we all got a Beyblade that Christmas, and it was the best thing ever. Just was. I think we spent the whole day just playing with our Beyblades, having fun.
That
yes,
sounds
good
lovely.
memory.
You didn't get a box. That's lovely. Thank you, Brother Dandre. Does anyone else want to go on then, Sister Rena?
Speaking of cardboard boxes, I always have beautiful memories of Sean and David on Christmas morning, and we still do it to this day. We pray first, thank God for Jesus, and then we read the Christmas story, and we would always do that. But most times they'd open their presents, but they'd just be playing with the boxes, and I can always remember Sean pushing David round in one of the cardboard boxes several times. During Christmas and afterwards. Such happy memories.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I'm going to carry on, and then I'm going to ask some other people if they're happy to contribute any memories. So in the book of Joshua, when the children of Israel had come to the promised land, they sent in spies. The spies came back with a negative report, and that caused unbelief. The story really highlights about how people so quickly have unbelief and the ability to forget. God had done a miracle in Egypt. God had divided the Red Sea. He'd drowned Pharaoh's armies, and God had won the victory for the Israelites. But what happened? They forgot. Just a few months after leaving Egypt, they were feeling negative and they were feeling defeated. They forgot who their God was. These are the same people who danced with Miriam and her tambourine after crossing the Red Sea on dry ground, and who had seen God's power were now feeling fearful. And why? Purely because they'd forgotten the power that was in their God, and they thought that they would have to fight with their own strength. And the result was that the whole nation had to return to the wilderness, and they wandered for 40 long years in the desert. As we jump to Joshua 4, they'd once again come to the Jordan River, and Joshua knows what God was going to do. He knew that God was going to divide the Jordan, just like Moses had divided the Red Sea. But Joshua didn't want his people to forget. He wanted them to remember what God was going to do on that day. He wants the succeeding generations to remember who God is and what God had done. Joshua knows the tendency of humanity to forget, and Joshua decides to make a monument. He decides that 12 men will carry 12 stones out of Jordan and put them in a pile. And this is what it says in Joshua 4, verse 5 to 7. Cross over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and each one of you take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you when your children ask in time to come, saying, what do these stones mean? Then you shall answer them that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed over the Jordan, the waters of Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be a memorial to the children of Israel forever. So what's Joshua saying? He's saying that memories are important, especially spiritual memories, memories of God's touch, memories of God defeating the enemy, memories of miracles. Generations later, young men and women would say, what do these stones mean? And the elders and the older generation would say, this is so you remember how powerful your God is. My God divided the Jordan. My God divided the Red Sea. It was to be a memorial to Israel forever. So should we have memorial stones? Well, our memorial stones should be the memories that you have, a testimony in your life of how God has worked. Do you tell people about it? Do you tell people about your victories of God's goodness, of his mercy, and of his faithfulness? At this point, does anyone else want to share a memory? Sister Wim.
Yeah, my memory is very similar to Sister Veronica's, but it's the other way around. It was my last memory of being in Jamaica as a child. I was 6 years old, and I remember my grandma woke me up, must have been about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't understand why. And she took me down to the beach because we lived literally, if this is the house, the road out there is the beach. And I remember it was just so lovely. It was just me and my grandma. We were just playing. I was playing in the water and she was talking to me and telling me all these things. And I hadn't got a clue what she was talking about because it didn't occur to me that that would be the last time I would ever see her. But my memory of her is one of the biggest part of my life because my first memory was of her. Of remembering someone, of someone looking after me, someone caring for me, someone dressing me, taking me to church, talking to me about God, and no matter how old I get, it's like the older I get, the stronger the memory of her becomes because it's such a beautiful memory.
Thank you for sharing that, Sister Wim. In the Old Testament, God commanded the Israelites to take time out to remember. He called them festivals. Some of them, we've got festivals of booths, festivals of tabernacles. God basically wanted them to take time out and remember these festivals. God requested people to stop and celebrate how manna came down from heaven, how he provided for people in the wilderness. Do you know why he wanted them to do that? Because just like us, they got busy doing life. And sometimes we are so busy, we forget. And we end up struggling, and we just forget who is in control. We forget who we are meant to be depending on. We forget what we should be remembering, the victories, the good times, the promises of God. In Colossians 1, verse 16 to 17, it says, "If it is true that all things hold together with Jesus, then it is true that without him or apart from him, things come undone." Apart from Jesus, we can lose ourselves. In those seasons when you feel like you're coming undone, it's a good time to ask ourselves, am I surrendering to God or am I resisting what he wants to do in my life? Are there areas in our lives that we have forgotten God and we just need to remember God so we don't keep coming undone? One of the ways to remember God is the rainbow in the sky. A rainbow is a lovely way of remembering God's promises. All we have to do is just look up and see this colourful, natural beauty that God has sent our way to remind us. After the flood, God tells Noah the rainbow is a covenant sign that he will cover the whole earth in judgment with water again. Each time the sign of the rainbow appears, the covenant is remembered. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on earth. God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on earth." The covenantal sign of the rainbow reassures us of God's promises that still apply to us today. Does anyone else want to share? Go on, Brother Sean. Thank you, Brother Shaw. The New Testament tells us to remember. It gives us instructions on how to remember God. When we partake of communion, we are to remember what God has done for us. In Luke 22, verse 19, it says, "And he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, 'This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me.'" As we eat the bread and drink the cup, we remember him just as he told us to. He says, "Do this in remembrance of me," and we can look back with thankful hearts to the cross. We need to remember what he's done and remember what his perfect sacrifice means for us. The bread symbolizes Jesus' body, and the wine symbolizes Jesus' blood. As we eat and drink these symbols, they point us to Jesus' loving and life-giving sacrifice. The Lord's Supper helps us to remember the gospel. The bread, you remember that Jesus became a man and gave up his body so that you might have eternal life. And the wine, we can remember that we are forgiven for our sins. As we take the Lord's Supper, let's always remember that we've been adopted into his family. We stood condemned in sin, but now we're counted righteous. You have now been set free to serve God. You are dead in your sin, but now you've been made alive, and we are now part of God's heavenly kingdom. Does anyone else want to share? Brother Norman.
I remember growing up in Jamaica. Our grandfather used to wake me up around 5 o'clock in the morning to go for water. And on a Sunday morning, I have to get up and feed the cattle and then get ready for church. But the thing about it, my grandmother used to say to me, if you don't do what you do, you can't get breakfast to go to church. So you have to go to church before you get the breakfast. So what I used to do, I used to like get up. When I get up, I make sure I go for the water. And then I came back. I get the breakfast. So my grandfather used to make me wait until everybody get ready and leave. Then he's the last one to go to church. So I always like, nah, I'm not gonna do this anymore. So it happened that one Sunday, he said to me, you know what? This is the last time you're gonna walk to church on your own. So he always be with me. So at that time, I'm a rude little lad. So because he walks slow, I used to run leave him. Yeah, I used to run leave him in the morning go to church. So when I got to church, he said, what do you do before when you run leave me? What do you do? So I used to run leave him to get on the plum tree, to pick the plum and put it in my pocket. So in church, Sunday school, I used to take them on my pocket and start to chew. And this Sunday school teacher used to see me and say, what are you doing there? I said, nothing. And after church, he called me, search my pocket, find the plum, walk me. I said, you don't eat in church, you eat at home. Yeah, so I remember those things with him, and he was a lovely guy with me growing up here. But the thing about it, when I'm growing up, I never have a sister nor family brothers around me, so I grew up on my own. Like, so my grandmother used to just, I'm the one that used to look after me. If my grandfather wanted to beat me, she hide me under the bed. Yeah. So I never get beaten from my grandfather. So every time I do something wrong, in the evening, she makes sure I get ready. And so by the time my grandfather ready to go to bed, I'm on the bed and she pulled the sheet and I keep on the bed with 2 pillows. And so in the morning, I just get her back, she let me out. And grandfather asked me, where did I sleep? I never told him. I used to look at my grandmother and say, my grandmother named Edith. We call him Mom, but her right name is Edith. So my grandfather would look at her and say, Edith, where the boy sleep? And she said, I don't know. And if he cook, I don't want to give me the food. But grandmother hide her own for me. So in the evening, whatever happened, I go to bed, eat it, and come out. My grandfather doesn't see me until the morning. So that's the way I grew up.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Brother Norman, a bit of insight into what happened in your childhood. Thank you. Really appreciate everyone sharing and contributing. One of the things that I read many, many years ago when I was studying is a psychologist. They studied why people feel loved and cared for. And it's not because someone says, I love you, even though that is important. The most significant thing is when people come home and ask about each other's day and talk about what went on and they communicate, which can sometimes be hard if you're feeling tired and you've had a long day, but it's important for you and your family to communicate. It's important that you ask about their day and make them feel important and relevant, and that you've got an interest in what's happening with them, and just giving them that time. Time is concrete. Time is a concrete, measurable expression of love. When I give someone the gift of time, I'm saying I value you. I'm saying you're important to me. The key to having a strong family is communicating values to our kids, is to give the kids and your partner time. If we want our children to know and understand and adopt our values, we need to spend time with them and to have valuable memories that will make them giving them time to go to church, to go to Sunday school, spending time praying with them, spending time reading the Bible with them. That'll be memories that they can build up, memories that they can look back and say, oh, I remember going to this prayer rally with Mummy. I remember doing this with Mummy, giving them that time and spending that time with them. 1,500 school children were asked the question, what do you think makes a happy family? And the most frequently answered the frequent answer to that question was doing things together. That is what has the impact on the children, not buying them constant toys. We've shared quite a lot of memories now, and everyone's spoken about their childhood. Sister Rena, you were saying about your children, they enjoyed being, spending time at the cardboard box. There's certain things that we remember regarding our childhood that's really important, and they're the memories that will stay with us forever. In Acts 21, verse 19 to 20, it reads, when Paul had greeted them, he began to explain in detail what God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. When they heard this, they praised God, and they said to him, you see, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are who have believed, and they are ardent observers of the law. Paul travelled a lot, and one of the journeys took him to Jerusalem, where he spent time with James. While he spent time with James and the elders, Paul testified about all the things God had done through his ministry to the Gentiles. He shared about the salvation he saw happening, as well as the protection and provision he received from the Lord as he travelled and ministered to various people. This idea to remember what the Lord has done is something the people of God were called to do from the beginning. We are all called to remember and to tell people, just like how the disciples did. They remembered the importance of Jesus. They remembered what Jesus did on the cross, and they went out and told people. And it's the same today. We're expected to remember, and we're expected to tell people. Saffron's birthday is coming up soon, and she's insistently reminded me constantly it's her birthday, as a child does. Constant reminders. And she reminds me, she tells me, and we need to be a little bit more like Saffron, constantly reminding people about the gospel. She feels no way about whether I've just got up in the morning or I'm really tired at night or I'm cooking dinner. She doesn't care. She'll insistently remind me, my birthday's coming up, Mummy. Do you know it's my birthday? My birthday soon. A couple of days, Mummy, before my birthday. But we need to be a little bit more childlike like that. Reminding people and telling them. Let's all be a little bit more like Saffron. Does anyone else have anything to share before I carry on? Sister Marie.
It's all relating to when I was growing up in Jamaica. What I remember mainly is where we used to live. I tell myself that we were one of the fortunate families, we must have been, because we had what was a brick-built house, and we had a kitchen which was separated from the house. And I enjoyed remembering when people didn't have water, and we happened to have a standpipe fitted to the side of our house. So effectively, we didn't have to worry about water. And also, I remember us having a bathroom section built at the side of the house. And to this day, I remember we had a tin bath inside. People didn't have bathrooms within the houses at the time. And I think that's helped us, because basically, I came to England and I didn't actually know, I didn't know my father because he left Jamaica when I was 3 months old. And I didn't actually get to England till I was 5. And I came with my 2 sisters. My dad met us at the airport, and that was the first time I was meeting him. It was nice, as in with my sisters, two of them. they knew him, so they knew who exactly we were talking to. And also, from London, we were coming to Birmingham, and we didn't have what you would call a motorway then, but we actually stopped at one of these, I don't know if it was a cafe or whatever, and that was the first time, because we go inside and everybody says, do you want some tea, a cup of tea? I'll say yes. And it was actually green tea, which I'd never tasted before. Because in Jamaica, when you say tea, it relates to everything but tea. You know, it might be coffee, it might be drinking chocolate, it might even be bush tea. But the tea like tofu and whatever, that isn't the sort of thing that we know as, we use as tea. But and also coming into Birmingham, I still remember the house that we were living in, and it was cold because it was foggy. So this is the first time I'd seen fog. And we got to the house, which, oh gosh, it was a big house, and it was the first time you realise, or I realised, in the main room there was a fire, a coal fire, and that is how we actually got warm, to warm the house. And also we having snow and ice, and you used to have ice on the inside of the window. That's how bad it was. And the neck curtains used to stick to the window. But it was nice experiences, and thank God we've lived through it.
Thank you, Sister Marie. So we're just going to look at the benefits of remembering. In remembering God's work in Scripture in our lives, we are strengthened in our faith. A strengthened faith results in praise that comes more easily and prayers that flow more readily. Ultimately, we are better equipped to strengthen the faith of others and glorify God in our remembering. Remembering God is worshipping God. Remembering God is part of the worship. Indeed, one of the greatest acts of worship is to remember who God is and what he has done. By choosing to be mindful of him and paying attention to him, we are opening our hearts to receive the comfort, peace, and the guidance that we need. We recall his love, power, and his truths. We recall and remember his deeds in our life, his faithfulness and care. True worshippers acknowledge God alone and magnify him and lift him up. In Psalm 77, verse 11, it says, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles long ago. Who is so great a God as our God? Remembrance is part of the process of transformation. The more we remember God and his words and his deeds, the more we are transformed into his image. The more we focus on him, the more we are becoming like him. He is breaking our pride and our stubbornness and giving us soft and faithful hearts. And remembrance is the path to faith legacy for the next generation. When we remember God in our lives daily, exhibiting a vibrant and active faith, we are powerful examples for the next generation. We are preparing them for a legacy of faith. We will not hide from them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power, and the wonders he has done. That's Psalm 78, verse 4. And there are consequences to forgetting. Forgetting is not harmless. Forgetting means slipping back into sin, into unbelief. Forgetting can have devastating effects. And in summary, we are to remember what Jesus did for us on the cross. We are to remember how Jesus changed our life. We are to remember his grace and his love and his mercy. Jesus has forgiven us, he has cleansed us, and he has changed our lives. And this is always worth remembering. Thank you to everyone that has contributed all their lovely memories today. I really appreciate it. And it's been great to hear about all of your lot stories. Thank you.